Haras Rafiq, Chief Executive, Counter-Extremism Organisation, Quilliam International. Morning, Haras.
Good morning, Nikki.
I think one of the key things for me listening to that, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in it, is the fact that she said, when asked, do you think it's the end of Islamic State? And she said, I don't have high hopes.
Yeah, that's one of the key things that I pick. I mean, lots of things. There are lots of things in that interview, but I've written it down just as I was listening to the interview now. The fact that she expressed her support for the caliphate by saying, I don't have high hopes, tells me a lot about her confused state of mind at the moment, and the fact that she still hasn't disavowed, as you said, the ideology and the theology and the purity of the concept. And that's quite worrying, because when she went out there, she was, let's not forget, a minor. She was only 15 years old, and she was radicalized, and she went all the way to Iraq and Syria for an idea that was the Islamic State. And the fact that she thought that it was a normal life, seeing beheaded heads that didn't faze her at all, bombs falling all around her, and she thought that was a normal life, that's quite disturbing.
And she said of the severed heads, her thought was that, if that person had had the chance, he would have killed a Muslim. But maybe, look, do you think she should come back? Do you think she should be allowed back into our country? Listen, you deal with de-radicalising people. That's your whole raison d'etre.
Yeah, here's the thing. She went out as a minor. She is still a British citizen. The Home Office hasn't actually stripped her of her nationality. She probably fits into a category where she's a combination of disturbed, disillusioned, and potentially dangerous. And I think that as the fact that she's pregnant, the fact that she was a minor when she went out there, Britain will probably let her back, but then she will have to go through due process. There will have to be an assessment to see how dangerous she is and what help can be given to her to actually help to de-radicalise her and rehabilitate her. The interview itself is not all discouraging. I mean, there is a lot of disillusionment in there as well, but it's
about the corruption.
That's what I was going to say. But
not about the purity and the complete literalism and the adherence to that form of fundamentalist Islam.
No, I totally agree. But that there is something there that can be worked with. But I think that at the end of the day, the authorities will probably let her back in.
There's a lot about the regime that her husband, the Dutchman, who she was chosen for him and she reckoned it was the right choice, that all went well. He was, for a time, captured, suspected of being a spy, and tortured. And she just kind of thought that was par for the course. And of course, that is the pattern in so many of these thug regimes during history, the paranoia of them.
Absolutely. I mean, if you read Animal Farm, I mean, we have to read it at school, it's a great example of how a totalitarian theocratic state does actually operate. And part of that is the self-patrolling, the paranoia that within their own support, there is potentially a spy, somebody who is trying to undermine the whole idea from within. And perhaps there were people, but this is a great example of how these types of regimes, both historically and more so recently, have operated and will operate.
And combined with the whole religious notion of heretics too. So you've got the counter-revolutionary thing from totalitarian regimes, and you've got the idea of the heretic. Now, what about charges? Ben Wallace, the security minister, said not so long ago, when asked about the threat these returning people presented, he said, a lot. They are battle-hardened. Some are coming back to further and continue their attacks on our way of life and our values. And some laws are expected within months that jihadists could face up to 10 years in jail if they return. Is she a jihadist? Is
she certainly is somebody. Yeah, if you look at the actual definition of the term jihadist, somebody who will use violence or the support of violence to actually further an Islamist cause. By that definition, yes, absolutely. And she broke the 2006 Terrorism Act, by which she went out to support and provide material support to a prescribed entity, ISIS. And when she comes back, she will have to go through that. But something else Ben Wallace said last year that was quite interesting, and this is the state of where we are. He said that only 40 of the 400 people that have returned to the UK have been prosecuted. And therein lies the problems that the Home Office is facing. In order to prosecute somebody, you have to be able to prove that they actually supported and committed violent acts themselves, acts of terrorism. And this is something that is, 10%, only 10% of the people that have come back have been prosecuted. And that's something that they will have to do with her when she comes back.
What about the baby?
Nikki, that's a very, very sad state of affairs. At the end of the day, the baby, if she does come back, the baby will probably be taken away from her, and the baby may well be part of a network of support from the family, or other agencies may be involved. But she certainly, from what I've heard, is not in a state to be able to raise a baby in a liberal secular democracy.
Haras Rafiq, thank you so much for coming on.